I succeed with the first house, which is 1,600 square feet. I reduce the consumption of energy of 55-60%.
Wow.
Have you been thinking about buying your first rental property for some time, or do you already own a bunch of properties? Well, fellow investors, you found the right location to listen and learn from others' successes. Welcome to The Very Real Estate Effect with your host, Axel Mont-Saint-Jean.
Hello, and welcome back to the Very Real Estate Effect podcast, a show dedicated to real estate investing right here in Quebec. And today, it couldn't be more true. It's a pleasure and an honor to have my friend Mickael Micmacher, who's an expert, and that's why he's here today, an expert in ecological building and energy efficiency. This is part one of a two-part series, so also stay tuned for next week because there's a lot of material to cover. So, hello, Mickael. It's a pleasure to have you today.
Hi, Mickael. Thank you very much to invite me.
Yeah, well, so before we jump into it, there's two things. Today's episode is a lot going to be about what's happening in Europe. If you listened to the podcast a couple weeks ago, after I came back from vacation, I shared how much I was reminded of that Europe is so much more ahead when it comes to energy efficiency in real estate, in buildings, in construction, and it was not a shocker, but I just wanted to share this with you. And in thinking of who could be helping us with this, I've known Mickael now for a few years, and actually after that podcast, he reached out and said, "Hey, Axel, you remember that I've worked on this for a long time." So we've been planning this for a few weeks. I'm really excited to have him here today. Now, what I'm going to be asking you is to share this episode with a friend who's a real estate investor, with someone who's concerned about and interested in energy efficiency, because it's going to give you a lot of background on where it's coming from and what you can do about it, because there's some very tangible tasks that you can take. So jumping into it, Mickael, you're an expert. You've actually trained thousands of people in Europe on energy efficiency.
That's correct.
And I just want to introduce you. First of all, thank you for joining us. And how did you get here? Who are you?
Thank you again for the invitation. It's an honor to be here. Even if English is not my mother tongue, I will do my best. I was born in France. I'm coming from southwest of France, near Toulouse. And after 7 years, after my studies, a master I obtained in my scholarship. I went overseas for 7 years. When I come back to France, I decided to touch base with my uncle, who is an architect, specialized in bioclimatism.
Okay.
And he wanted in 2003 created a center for training unemployed people.
Okay.
But he has no clue how to promote that, how to deal that, how to manage the center. So I jump in this association and really learn about ecological construction for 2 years. I followed a lot of trainings with my uncle. So in some years, I gained the skills about that. And 2 years later, I had the chance to manage, let's say, a building materials trading like Home Depot, but independent one.
Mm-hmm.
And then I wanted to promote ecological materials and the way of the conception and the construction with ecological material. When we speak about ecological materials, it's important to specify a bit, because a block of concrete could be say that it's ecological.
Yeah, it depends how you look at it.
Yeah. But it's not, right? Because we have to take in account, I think it's important to specify a bit.
Sure.
We have to take in account the greenhouse gas, about the fabrication, how you make a material for construction, right? So where do you extract it? Where does it come from? Then you have to travel to the point of conversion when you transform it.
Yeah.
And then the transportation to the site you're building with it. With what are you building with? And then are you unconstruct the building, or do you demolish the building? So what are you doing with the wastes?
Yeah. Okay, so you have to look at the full lifetime.
Yeah, full lifetime. And this helps to calculate the greenhouse gas, right?
Okay.
So when you look at the concrete, the cement is a huge huge amount of
CO2.
green of CO2 and greenhouse gas. So it's a nightmare about the consumption of energy it needs. Okay, so when I speak about ecological products, they are made from wood, they are made from cellulose, they are made from hype. They are made of different materials that you can find in the nature. They are renewable.
Yeah.
Concrete cement is not renewable. Okay, it's like sand.
How would stone be considered?
It's not renewable neither.
No, it's not renewable. But if you're able to pick up the stones in the river and then build your house right next to it, then I mean, there's very little greenhouse impact.
Yeah,
It was just an example.
and you don't transform it.
Yeah.
So you take it as it is, and you build with it.
Yeah.
We call that a gabion
Okay.
in the technique. So you can put it for a draw, and then you put some, let's say, I don't remember the word for la chaux. It's lime. Then you use lime with it, and so you can fix all the wall together with lime. Okay. So it worked very well, but you don't have a good insulation with that.
No. Okay.
Not at all.
Yeah. Yeah. There's always a trade-off between how solid and how insulated.
But we have nowadays techniques that helps to have very nice system of construction, even with stones, that are very efficient for the ecology and the health, because nobody is speaking about the health. When you're using insulation from petrol that are issued from petrol or chemicals, such as the pink, green
Foam,
foam or polystyrene or I don't know, fiberglass, you know, those products are very bad for health.
Yeah.
And some of them, they are nowadays. We've got studies that say that they contribute to cancer, and nobody talked about it. But the people who are working, the workers who are working in buildings, they are smelling that all day long, all day long. So it's not good for their health, right? So they don't have a very long life after when they go on retirement.
Yeah.
So it's proven now that they've got impacts. And people who are living inside, if they don't have a good ventilation and so on, so they have some problems with health. I had some missions in different countries for that, but I will talk that about later.
Yeah, so you were working with your uncle, who's an architect, and you were able to learn all these skills.
Yeah.
And then that's when, around the period where France put a new law saying that buildings needed to get some, what's called in France, a diagnostic de performance énergétique, DPE. So just to make it clear, so just like in Quebec, when you purchase a property, you usually get an inspection, and the inspection really looks at the structural, looks at the building, it looks at everything, but very little about, or nothing about, energy efficiency, which is really crazy. So in Europe now, it's by law since about 18 or 20 years that whenever there's a transaction, there needs to be those energy efficiency diagnostics that are done. And you started exactly at that period.
Yes. After managing this company, I've noticed that the entrepreneurs were not at all informed about ecological products or even the conception, and even for the architect and things like that. So I said to my uncle, I have to start my own training company. It was in 2006. And 2007, I said, okay, I started. So I let go my job. I needed to sell the house. I've sold also the 2 cars we had with my ex-wife, at that time, my wife. And I started the company. She believed in me, believed in my project. And I started in my garage. And for 2 years, I just walk around all France saying, you have to do something, you have to do something. The efficiency diagnostic, DPE, energetical efficiency diagnostic, was launched at the end of 2006.
Okay.
And I started my company in 2007. So everybody told me I'm a fool guy.
You're crazy.
Yeah, I'm crazy.
That's good when people say that.
Yeah, especially because my way of seeing it was focused on energy efficiency and ecological materials.
Okay.
Because you can have a very good energy efficiency with petrol products, petrol-based products. So the idea was to make converging the two of them. because you can go to space, with with a ship. So you're not freezing out there, because those are, let's say, industrial and products and petroleum-based products and so on. So they could be very efficient too. See what I mean?
Yeah.
So the idea was also to take into account the nature, to take into account the workers and the people who are living in the houses. So that was really different, the way of thinking, of the way of doing, and training too. So, I started that, and the DPE started at the same time. It has some difficulties to start because people believe in it and not. Then it became an obligation, mandatory.
Yeah.
And the idea was said that in some times when somebody is going to sell his house, it's an obligation to make a DPE, right? And but there was no consequences at the beginning. You just had the information about the consumption of energy and the emission of greenhouse gas.
Yeah.
Nothing else.
And so just to backtrack a little bit, in your opinion, why is it that the government legislated on this? Why did they make this mandatory? What was the driving force behind it?
We had some problems. Different things. We had some problems with the cost of energy in Europe.
Yeah.
Starting the 70s with the petroleum crisis. In Germany, it's different because they are very focused on the building. In France, they are much focused on the cars industry. So we had two different paths in Europe. I speak about Germany and France because they are the two main leaders in Europe, right? And so we had some politicians had finally said, okay, we have a problem.
Okay. We have a problem with the current stock of buildings that's not efficient, and we need to force efficiency.
We have a problem with the level of consumption. We have a problem with the trading balance. We're importing too much gas and petroleum and so on.
Yeah.
We have a problem. Electricity is based on 71% of electricity is produced through nuclear in France. But for heating, which is about 30% of the consumption of a house, it's gas and fuel and petrol.
Yeah.
Okay, much more than electricity.
Fossil fuels.
Yeah. So they say, okay, we cannot go this way. And the salary were more or less blocked. Thanks to a change of the politics with the 35 hours a week. And so the level of life was more or less blocked for many years, but the increase of the costs to heat yourself and so on, something was not more working anymore.
The energy share of salaries that weren't growing was too high, essentially. So they figured we need to force more efficiency to bring this back a little bit more into balance with regards to income.
Yeah, this is the material and logical aspects. Political aspect is the train of all the COP, COP 20, COP 21, and so on.
Okay.
And with all the publicity and the intels about the crisis of we have about environment,
the climate crisis,
and so on. So and France, the political thing that they have a voice, and they have to be like a leader, or showing the path with the lights and so on, with this kind of thinking that some politicians still have. It's in the 18th century, and they wanted to say, okay, we are able to do it.
Okay.
It was very interesting. A lot of discussions, because in France we love to discuss everything.
Tell me about it.
It's like a national sport, you know?
Yeah, let's talk.
Yeah, so a lot of discussions, a lot of people are against, people are pro, cons, and so on. Anyway, it was
the law
done.
is passed.
Yeah, it was done.
In 2006.
Yeah. So, as I said, it started slowly. Then it became mandatory. Then I created my company too. And I also had the opportunity to create a syndicate, a federation of different training companies.
Okay.
And we go to the Ministry of Environment and the Ministry of Work and the ministry in charge of all the building and the real estate and things like that. And so we went there saying, okay, you have to do things about ecological building too. You have to take that in account, because the thing is, we have about 35 million houses in France, 35 million houses, and the renew is only 1 or 2% a year. It's nothing.
No.
So we've got a lot of very old houses, and we've got a lot of new houses after Second World War, which
is a booming period. And so naturally, there's a lot of construction
right?
that happened.
So how can you make a renovation on houses who are from the 16th, 17th, 18th century?
Yeah.
It's not the same way of making renovation of building in the 50s or in the 70s or the 80s, you know? And till the 70s and the crisis of the petrol crisis, insulation was not very important at that period of time. Anyway, so we wanted to take into account how to renovate with what kind of material, for what aim, what objective.
Yeah.
And we have to make to converge all together with the same objective.
Yeah, and it makes sense in a way that the government looked at this and said, we know our housing stock is rather old.
Yeah.
We need to force improvement. And the only way to do this is whenever there's a transaction, then they need to take a picture, a diagnosis of energy efficiency at that time. And then we're going to force people to improve the rating. So if you're at the bottom of the pile, I think it's between A and J. And J. Okay, so then if you're at J, you need to go to C. And if you're at C, you need to go to B, and so on and so forth. Because this really gives the incentive to improve, because then you have visibility on the cost that's to be expected when you buy a house, and also on the renovations that need to be done. So for a buyer, this is actually a very good, I was going to say, maintenance program.
It's incredible because it evolved. This DPEA evolved in time in the last more or less 20 years, especially because at the about 5 years ago or 7 years ago, you can go to court if the DPA, the report is not well done, or there's something is not working. So you can go to court and oppose yourself to the selling price, saying, "Oh, I discovered that there is a difference between the report I have and the reality when I start my work." Right?
Okay.
Because in the DPE you also have example your house is a category F and you want to go to C. Well, there are recommendations at the end of the report saying, okay, if you change your windows, you will gain X amount of energy. Okay, you will save X amount of energy. Yeah. If you make insulation, this is the impact, the positive impact. If you change the heater and so on. So you've got a plan of doing things, or plan of renovations, what you can do, and then you have to look for the prices, quotations, and so on. Okay? Yeah. The guy is not giving you the prices.
No, of course, but at least it gives you a scope of work.
Yeah.
Roughly what needs to be done. Yeah. Windows, insulation, systems that consume energy, as
but
you
first
said.
You check everything, and then you say, this is good, this can be improved, and this has to be changed. But he don't speak about, like here in Quebec, about the structure, the foundations, things like that. It's not structural. No. It's about energy.
Yeah.
Only energy.
Energy efficiency.
Yeah, that's it. So it's very interesting. And at the beginning, some people took advantage of the situation because to make it work, you had some subventions or government pay you back a part
subsidies.
of it, subsidies. So...
of course. There's always some weasels that find a way to crook the system.
So the thing is, at the beginning you had some bad articles because this making sell the papers. Yeah. So you speak about the 10% of the train who arrive late, but you don't speak about the 90% who arrive on time, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Usually it works this way.
And you don't talk about the success stories where the old house was renovated and now it's much better performing.
Yeah. Unfortunately, but it works like that. Yeah. Okay. So then they have to change that. They have to put more. It has to become mandatory. Then they have to put accountability.
Yeah.
responsibilities on the guys who are making the diagnostics, which is a good thing too, and so on.
So just to give a bit of background, so the way it works is that you mandate, they're all independent inspectors.
Yeah.
And then they do the report.
Yeah.
And for that report to be valid, it actually needs to be submitted to a government body who then they verify and then they issue a 13 or 14 digit number, and that number shows that the report has been submitted, that it is conform, and that it's, I think, then part of a database, so that I'm not sure if it can be retrieved by somebody else. I'm not sure how it works, but at least like this issuing of this number shows that it's been done seriously, verified, and uploaded, basically.
Yes, and what we wanted to do, me and the other guy in the same industry, when we went to the governments and the different ministries, we said we have to do something about what is it used for? This is only for information?
Yeah.
Or can we use this as a tool?
Yeah, what's
right?
the purpose?
What's the purpose of it?
Yeah.
We have to go a step forward, a step ahead. So the idea for me and other people in the same wave, I should say, is what can we do with it to make a good impact?
Yeah.
Okay? And
maximize the impact.
Yeah, and a real impact. So the idea, I work with the FNAIM, I work with different organizations. It's a national federation for the real estate broker, with the syndicate of notary. I met a lot of different people thanks to the syndicate, federation, and so on. And we spoke all together, and the idea was to say, okay, when you want to rent, the rent has to depend on the level of efficiency.
Yeah.
Because it means that the owner put money in the building or in the house, so you have less money to put on your on
utilities,
and on your energy consumption. So, and you have a better health also, because with less air,
gaps
and that could get in, so you have less illness and so on. So it's better for you.
Yeah.
So we say, okay, but so with the same apartment, same house in the same streets, one is category C, one is category G, you should pay a bit higher price on the C category than the G.
Yeah.
Okay?
It would make sense.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So we have to work with everybody to say, okay, how do we apply that?
Yeah.
And then when you sell your house, the same house in the street, you made a lot of work on it, and it's better and more efficient and so on. So you should have a better price when you sell it.
Yeah, there should be an energy efficiency premium because you've invested in making sure that it was at the top of its category.
Yeah. But France is a very conservative country, so you have to go it step by step. But you have to remain also, I had to, with one of my partners, we had to remain very focused on that, because otherwise it would be just a sticker on the fridge, you know?
Yeah. No, there's no point, or very little. It
Just
defeats the purpose.
Yeah, so we have to put that in the real world of how can we improve the buildings and the life of the people and the wallet also to make savings. So at the end now, it was forecast in 2020 or 2019 to make an obligation of a minimum level of efficiency in every houses.
Yes.
I don't speak about buildings, condos, it's something different. And the guy who is going to sell his house, going to the notary, and with his report, the DPE, and if it's F and the minimum is C or D in this area, in that case, the notary say, "Oh no, I can't sell it."
Yeah, so that's where I wanted to get to.
You have to make the work. You have to pay the works to improve the house, make a new certification, right? Or you cut the price of, let's say, 20,000, 40,000, 100,
depending on the size of the work that needs to be done. So exactly.
So this was the last aspect we wanted to obtain, but it was very difficult about the organization of that.
Yeah,
it should have been in put before COVID, so it was stopped. Then there was a huge inflation situation for
property prices.
Yeah, for everybody in the world, I would say in developed countries at least. So we had this kind of inflation issue everywhere in Europe. So it was not a good time
No.
to make this kind of implication.
Yeah.
But I arrived here in 2017, so it's no more my business. But
Yeah, it's not your problem anymore.
no, but I'm feeling
still,
it.
And I understand your concern because we've had numerous conversations about this off the air and before we start. And I just want to go back to what you said with regards to now, since a few years, I think the lowest two categories, so E and G, you as an owner, you actually can't sell it until you make it to a D. I think, or you go up like 2 notches. And the thing is that, think about it from the perspective of an owner. Think about it from someone who's been working their whole life. They bought a small rental property. Yeah, it's a bit old. They haven't really been able to invest, or they chose not to. And then at some point, they get older. They'd like to sell it, and they can't. They can't sell it until they upgrade maybe the windows, the insulation, and everything. Like, it's a fairly important constraint on people, but at the same time, isn't it also a good way to force improvement at the moment of transaction? I mean, it depends how you look at it.
Yes, and you're just missing just a little thing is the French government is putting about 60 million euros on the table to help people to renovate their houses.
Okay.
So you can have about, let's say, 40,000 dollars. Sorry, about $40,000 to help you. So about 25,000
in subsidies.
In subsidies
Okay.
to help you renovate. So it's not just like that. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's you don't have to put everything out of your pocket.
Yeah, it's true. There's a fair amount of government help over there too, especially for insulation.
Yeah, because when I left France, I had a big project about building a place with 12 houses on, let's say, 500,000 square feet, 5 hectares. And I succeed with the first house, which is 1,600 square feet. I reduced the consumption of energy of 55-60%.
Wow.
Only with the conception, the kind of material, the good insulation, and the way of building it.
Yeah.
So with no extra, I mean. But the thing is, even if insulation costs me a bit more, I reduce all my heating system about 30% in material equipment.
Yeah.
So the heater is smaller and everything.
Yeah.
So what I pay on one hand, it's reduced on the other hand. So at the end, it cost me about 7 or 10% more. But it's nothing. Where my house
compared
cost
to the
me,
saving.
it cost me about 200,000. So it cost me, let's say, 15,000-20,000 more. So when in France, when you make a loan, you can put that in the loan. So it's not a problem.
Yeah.
Like here, you can, when you build your house, you put that in the loan, so it's not a big problem. And the thing is, with the difference, about €1,000 in my pocket, because it was 1,500 and I earn to 500 a month. Okay, so with 1,000 in my pocket makes 12,000 a year.
Yeah.
So in less than 2 years, I reimburse myself, but the energy still increased in 2 years. The inflation still increased in 2 years.
Yeah.
So I even make more money. But people are just looking short term.
Yeah.
And this is, we have different challenges, but this is one of them.
And this is actually a really good segue for the next episode about what does it mean for here in Quebec. And I'm sorry to say, but I feel, and correct me if I'm wrong, that sometimes in Europe there's a lot more of a long-term thinking, and here we're very short-term thinking. And so that translates into choices that are questionable.
That's correct. And I would say we need also strong decisions with people who are mensch. So they're putting their guts, and they're taking them in their hands and they say, okay, now we're going to do it. So we miss that because, in my opinion, my perspective, the a lot of people are much more interested in how can I renew my mandate, how can I be re-elected, how can I please some people, some corporations and things like that, and then not taking care or then not taking into account the whole picture. And it's a real pity, in fact.
Yeah. And that's what we're going to be talking about in our next episode.
Yep.
Mickael, thank you very much for joining us today. And what I love about this is that I know that you and I could be talking about this for hours.
Yeah, for sure.
and we're due at some point to, I was going to say, go camping, set up a little fire, and then maybe have a drink and then continue talking. In any case, thank you very much. And for everybody who's listening, stay tuned also for next week's episode, because it's going to be about energy efficiency here in Quebec, and that directly impacts you. So thank you very much. Thank you again, and we'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.